Hello everyone. So as you can tell, this is my first time reading a fanfic and posting it. I'm hoping there isn't a lot of mistakes, but there might be, so I'm sorry about that. I'm gonna be reading a fic from the Untamed or Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation fandom. So it's gonna contain like a lot of Chinese terms and names, and I'm probably gonna mispronounce this, but I will try my hardest to like do everything right. But if like I mispronounce anything, please let me know and I will try my hardest to fix it. This is like a 2-part fic. I don't know if I'll read the second part. I haven't even read the first, but I'm really excited to read it and record because I feel like I'm not gonna be ready. And I feel like it's gonna be really funny, but we'll see. So yeah. Welcome to the Yiling Laozu Fanclub. Written by Nienie. Read by Munchin on Mochiko. Summary. What do you do when you accidentally start a whole fan sect for your crush? Poor Wanji doesn't know. He was tired. It began, as most things do, with an accident. After 5 consecutive night hunts with a grand total of 3 hours of sleep in between, the normally well-rested Han Wanjun, esteemed second jade of Lan, had gotten himself lost in a marketplace near Yiling. The noise battered his ears relentlessly like a steel drum, not easing in the slightest as he walked gracefully down the street. While used to the steel clanging and screaming din of battle, it felt foreign to Wanji to be suddenly surrounded by such happy and boisterous yelling. From all sides, the sounds of booth owners selling goods assaulted him, and running children had almost tripped him multiple times. Wanji couldn't really handle Ling Laozu! Like a wild animal scenting its prey, all of Wanji's senses honed in on a singular shout. Eavesdropping is forbidden, he thought, as his path suddenly seemed to require moving past the alley he had heard the name from. I'm telling you, that's not what he looks like. His eyes are way closer, you... Come on, Mimi. I'm the artist here. You can't tell me I got it wrong, even though you can't even... But you did get it wrong. Your drawing looks like a... Perking sideways into the alley, Wanji spotted 2 girls looking 2 seconds away from a full-out brawl. Taking a look at the drawing, Was that supposed to be Wei Yi? That's not what he looks like, he heard himself say with a sudden flash of righteous indignation. The artist seemed to have a fair amount of skill, so why was he drawing Wei Ying like he was average looking? Wanji, with the experience of years of discipline, snapped himself out of his sudden bout of emotion to the sight of the 2 girls staring at him. How was you? Their twin shrieks assaulted Wanji's exhausted brain, but in that moment he couldn't have cared less, because... Fix it. The artist scrambled to comply, staring expectantly at him for instructions. Wanji, sleep-deprived, did not hesitate to give them, stepping further forward to join the 2 in the alley completely. His hair is longer and a little messier. It reaches out around the waist. He's taller and thinner. No, not like that. Thin. There. His eyes are closer together. I told you, Gigi. They're a bit bigger. Yes. Now his smile. Their liveliness and beauty is hard to capture, but... After they were satisfied with the artist's descriptions of Wei Ying, Wanji and the 2 girls found themselves eating lunch at a restaurant. The artist and her sister had introduced themselves as Nienie and Jiwan, respectively, and now they were looking at him in suspicion. After they were satisfied with the artist's description of Wei Ying, Wanji and the 2 girls found themselves eating lunch at a restaurant. The artist and her sister had introduced themselves as Nienie and Jiwan, respectively, and now were looking at him in suspicion. Han Wanjun, Nienie said, why help us out? Yeah, Han Wanjun, her sister peeked up. Do you know Yiling Lao? Not so loud, the artist whispered furiously. My apologies, Wanji began. I'm not very well rested today, and therefore, when I found your description of him lacking, I seem to have lost control of my emotion, and therefore my actions. Furthermore, I do know him, and I would like to be so bold as to ask for the drawing." The sisters stared at him, then each other, seeming to come to a silent agreement. "Han Wanjun, well, we would love to give you this drawing. We see now that the man is extremely good-looking, and we would like to keep it, at least until we make a few more drawings of him." "Of course," continued Jiwan, "we definitely would not mind if Han Wanjun would stay and help us out with this endeavor so we won't, make any mistakes." To Wanji, at the moment, this was a wonderful idea, so he nodded, only feeling the slightest unease when the twins' grins appeared on their sisters' faces. After a good night rest, Wanji found that this was not a good idea. He was basically asked to describe Yiling's looks over and over. What if Wanji becomes too obvious in the way he describes Wenji's eyes or lips or silkiness of his hair? Well, see there. He decided that he will never go sleep deprived again because he seemed to make terrible decisions. However, his job was literally to describe Wei Ying's looks over and over. Wanji decided that this was an okay idea. Therefore, at noon sharp the next day, the three were already sitting on a booth on the side of a busy road working. Well, Nienie was working. Wanji had no idea what Jiwan was doing. Those 5 miniature wooden gnarls in her hand? In any case, Wanji was ignoring himself. Already, Wanji and Nienie had finished their 4 drawings of Wei Ying's various poses, including the one he had made the previous day. These paintings were truly very good-looking, according to Wanji and the crowd of about 20 girls gathered around the stall. It was gratifying to ogle these descriptions of Wei Ying, smiling, looking over his shoulder, smirking while spinning his flute, looking down at the viewer like there was scum under his feet. Really, truly, very good-looking. "I would pay him to step on me," Wanji heard one of the girls say, and he nodded his head once in agreement. "Wait, who even is that?" he heard another one pipe up. It would not do to answer, he thought, because if they found out that he was drooling over Yiling Laozu, they might... "Oh, that's Yiling Laozu," said Jiyan. Deathly quiet. Even Wanji, who had lived in Jingxi, had never heard a quiet so that it could compare to this absolute silence. He turned around to assess the crowd, pale, gaping faces. Problem. In an amazing, unfined moment, all the girls jumped, turned to him, and gaped even more. Wanji raised a single, perfect eyebrows. The girls rushed to shake their heads and stutter out denials. Good. As he was turning back towards the paintings, however, a brave young soul spoke up behind him. "Han Wanjun, isn't the Yiling patriarch super ugly? I mean, I thought he ate babies and stuff." Wanji whirled around. 5 hours later, a captive audience of over 50 young girls were waxing poetic in their heads about poor, misunderstood Yiling Laozu Wei Wuxin. They didn't know his favorite food was his sister's spicy pork and lotus root soup. So cute, and he's so tough for liking spicy food. Apparently, he had a sunshine smile that did its best to cheer his friends up. Wow, so thoughtful. What a man. And he even loved to play pranks on unsuspecting acquaintances. Oh my God, a playful soul and so handsome. Standing in front of them was Lan Wangji, who had just spoken more than he had as an entire life put together. "And so, I left Yiling, and I am currently on my way home." All of his audience stilled in anticipation when it became clear that Wangji's account was finished. They began to frown. Tentatively, the same brave soul from before raised her hand. How Wanjun, that is... is that it?" Wanji was confused. Well, You see, it's quite obvious that, well, you and him. At Wanji's slightly embarrassed nod, she continued, emboldened. So, you never told him? Why the actual hell would I tell him? Thought Wanji. After watching him speak for 5 hours, the girls had grown relatively familiar with Wanji's micro-expressions, so another brave soul raised her hand. Han Wenjun, we all think he likes you. He does not. He does. No. But the pestering girl was cut off as Ji Wan stood from where she had been sitting and the audience pushed her into her seat. Han Wenjun, Ji Wan spoke instead, I'm going to start a Yiling Laozu fan group. After a look around at her companions, she raised her voice slightly. Well, who wants to join? All 50 girls raised their hands in unison. Now that that's established, continued Nienie, who had finished her drawings with a few to spare, we would like to ask Han Wenjun to be our leader. Han Wenjun had no idea what was happening. Well? Turning out his haze of confusion for a moment, Wanji took notice of the 50 girls, seeming to range from age 13 to 30, staring at him pleadingly. Well, nobody could say Han Wenjun didn't have a heart. Wanji reached home exhausted. About 6 of the girls were headed in his direction, so they followed him like ducklings, calling for Lao Shi to tell him more about Laozu's habits and likes. This, in itself, wouldn't have been a grievance for Wanji, who had gotten quite used to being pestered by Wei Ying, but there was one specific key problem. Wherever they went, the girls recruited more. During Wanji's simple 3-day trip home, the number of his students rose before his eyes from 6 to over 300, and that was just what Wanji had seen alone. Who knew what the other 40 were doing? Wanji may as well ended up as the leader of a new great sect. Wisely, he chose to keep his little misadventure a secret from his uncle and brother. Once upon a time, Ji Chen would have discovered any of his secrets right away. Sect leader duties had slowly whittled away their time together, and Wanji could barely read his own brother anymore. Even now, Ji Chen was at the Koi Tower again, visiting with Jun Gyun Yao and Ni Min Ji, so Wanji had nobody to see. So after another very good rest, what could be better than visiting Curry Town for a relaxing boat ride? On his way to the docks, he was intercepted by a group of 5 girls, and he felt his stomach drop. There was no way this was still happening. Lao Shi! One of the girls called, and Wanji's stomach dropped even further. So far, it was a wonder that he wasn't expelling from its body altogether, because, oh no, it was still happening. Lao Shi, another stated, thankfully much quieter, will you teach us? Wanji hated this. No way. He just wanted a boat ride. Yes, Lao Shi, another one said. Is it true that Wei Wuxian was, evil when he was attending classes at the crowd recess? Wanji's sudden urge to pure righteous rage blinded him to the satisfied smirks of the maidens. The next few months passed in much the same way. Wherever and whenever Wanji traveled, he was assaulted by groups of maidens and subsequently tricked into telling stories about Wei Ying. It was obvious that the original 50 girls had been very busy, as even when Wanji left Gusu altogether, girls still clamored around him claiming to be his disciples. By now, he had educated at least 2,000 during his night hunts and errands, and it had become quite clear to him that he had accidentally become a leader of an, admittedly, well-organized sect. The Ji sisters, who were somehow everywhere, claimed to be his head disciples. They had organized weekly group meetings, which always took place in different towns and districts, the meetings taking place at first behind his back, and then with him leading. Also, there were ranks within his sect that determined seniority, such as age, status, experience, and something called Wuji points that he wished he didn't understand. Judging by how, whenever a disciple tricked him into approving vocally of Wei Ying, she was mysteriously awarded points, however, He definitely understood. What has his life become? Hawajin asked his uncle for guidance. Despite being quite low in productivity and having very short attention span, a girl named Zhao Lu appointed herself Wan Ji's assistant while she was quite still young. Her Wu Ji points were some of the highest in the whole sect due to her writing. Whenever Wan Ji inquired about this, he received a vague Ni Hawanjin-esque answers. Lao Shi, I really don't know what you're talking about. It's just a fun hobby, that's all. No need to concern yourself. Anyway, did you need help with anything? Presently, it was dinner time. When she was staying at an inn after a recent night hunt, so he could be found in the eating area, seated across from Zhao Lu and the Ji sisters. Lao Shi, said Zhao Lu in a suggestive tone, and ignored his glare for speaking while eating. The Shijis say Yiling rotation is coming up for a weekly meeting. She wiggled her eyebrows. Wang Ji was unimpressed. Really, Shi Mei? Chided Nienie. Don't be like that. He won't answer you. Lao Shi, the Yiling rotation is coming up. Will you come lead the meeting? Almost everyone will be there this time. Wang Ji stubbornly continued to eat his food. Yes, Lao Shi, Jiwani added. Please, why don't you come talk about Wei Wuxian? Her sister opened her mouth again, and Wang Ji prepared for the finishing blow that Nienie always knew exactly how to deal. She may well be sad if you don't. Zhao Lu pouted mournfully. There it was. The girl saw exactly when he caved and smiled brightly. Wang Ji sighed. He was truly becoming too weak at heart. Yiling was crawling with girls, and Wei Wuxian had a terrible headache. He stared down the market street, aghast as he took in the scene from his vantage point in a hidden alley. He watched thousands of young women browse the jewelry stands and clothing stores, and he could see quite a few men drool at the sight. Pretty Gigi's, said a young Ayan, holding his hand. Yeah, said Wei Wuxian, feeling a bit faint. What was this? Was he really not scary enough? He thought he'd name Yiling Laozu wasn't enough to ward even the bravest cultivators away, not to mention young women. Through his crisis, he almost missed a group of 4 that had stopped right beside his alley, but a girl's voice broke through his hazen thoughts. See, Laoxin, we told you almost everyone would be here. He took a peek, and... What? Lanshan? Wei Wuxian thought the restful energy must have finally gotten to his brain. Wen Qing was totally going to kill him. He shook his head and slapped his face a few times, but Lanshan was still there, with a bit of put-upon expression when he stopped. What? Wei Wuxian heard the same girl as before continue, and he took in the 3 surrounding Lanshan. There was a young girl, looking about 16, and 2 more, maybe around 20, who looked like sisters. He watched the younger sister open her mouth again. Listen to me. The guy's not called Yiling Laozu for no reason. Obviously, everyone's gonna know he lives around here. Yes, continued the elder sister, considering the, nature of our sect, if you know what I mean, everyone was excited to come visit this place. As if to prove her point, the youngest smiled excitedly and began to bounce on her toes. Okay, what? What did this have to do with Wei Wuxian? Was this like an army to take him down or something? Seriously, he thought Lanshan at least would leave him alone. He kept watching Lanshan, moved his eyes slightly and blinked, and all 3 girls laughed as if he'd said something funny. The youngest one grabbed Lanji's sleeve, and Wei Wuxian immediately felt like he'd swallowed a jar of vinegar. Huh. He must be jealous of Lanshan for having such beautiful girls around. Chen Jiji, who? Ian asked his companion with a tug of his hand, but was ignored completely. He persevered with a few more tugs, but soon gave up with a sad expression. Meanwhile, Wei Wuxian continued to peek at the small group. The younger sister stepped forward and opened her mouth as if to shout, but the youngest stepped forward quickly to stop her. Shiji, can I please? The girl smiled. Of course, Shimei. Do your best. The Shimei beamed and ran forward a few steps before cupping her hands in her mouth. The three left behind her covered their ears just in time for Shimei to shatter Wei Wuxian's eardrum with a shout of, Laozu's here! While doing the best to recover his hearing, a dumbfounded Wei Wuxian dropped his jaw as literally every single girl turned their way and saluted, shouting, Laozu! In perfect unison. Ayan took this advantage of his caretaker's distraction and quickly slipped away. Lanzhan, who had lowered his hands from his ears as soon as Shimei had finished shouting, surveyed the group with no change in expression. He nodded, approving them with a Xiaolu, Jiuan, Nienie, he continued, looking at the three girls in turn. Bring them along. He turned around and swept off in a cloud of handsome, cool, amazing white robes, leaving behind a stunned Wei Wuxian. What was this? A harem? A jar of vinegar swallowed previously became 1,000 jars, and Wei Wuxian looked down at Ayan, who was not there. What? After a while of frantically looking around, Wei Wuxian finally spied his charge in the midst of a group of women following his acquaintance. He discreetly tried to call out to the little boy, but gave up when he realized he wouldn't be heard through the crowd. Watching Ayan walk away, he quickly came to the conclusion that he had to follow. Wei Wuxian couldn't let the kid get away that easily, when Queen definitely wouldn't spare him. With that in mind, he emerged from his hiding place. As he watched the proceedings from behind a tree, Wei Wuxian felt his eyes bug out of his head. What the actual hell? Laozu, who had been one of the girls who had been with Lanzhan in the alley, the eldest sister, raised her hand, gesturing to the rest of the girls in the clearing, like thousands of them, gathered in a semicircle around Lanzhan. She continued, The majority voted for your first meeting again. Please let us begin. Thank you, Nienie. Lanzhan looked around the clearing, taking in his audience. A hush fell over the gathered girl as he stood from where he was sitting eloquently on a flat stone. He cleared his throat. Wei Wuxian thought that Lanzhan was very handsome when he cleared his throat, and that he should definitely do it more often, ideally where Wei Wuxian could see him. As I said, Lanzhan continued grandly, let us begin. On the first night of our guest disciples visiting Gusu, I was patrolling the grounds. On the night shift, I had just come out of seclusion, and so Wei Wuxian sat through a few hours of Lanzhan praising his looks, intellect, creativity, demeanor, attributes, assets, and so on. Not necessarily in that order. By the halfway point, his face was permanently dyed in a nice, wind-secked red, and he was no longer oblivious to Lanzhan's feeling. He was also definitely no longer oblivious to his own. He was also now fully aware of, as Nienie put it, the nature of this sect, and he couldn't decide whether he should be flattered or creeped out. Since Lanzhan was the leader of this sect, whatever he was, he blushed even harder thinking about it, Wei Wuxian chose to be flattered. By now, in any case, Wei Wuxian's mind had checked out of the meeting for sheer self-preservation. He had heard every one, or if he heard even one more single word praising him, he would most likely simply be ascended to the skies. So, laying spread eagle underneath the bush surrounding a clearing, he let the cadence of Lanzhan's voice wash over him. After a couple more hours, the girls finally startled him out of his stupor. All right, she said, and she took a quick peek to let Wei Wuxian know it was the younger sister, Yan, if you remembered correctly. Laozu has finished his account for the day. Please thank him. All the girls rose in unison and bowed to Lanzhan, chorusing, Thank you, Laozu. Ayan, who had been nodding earnestly throughout the entire speech, made sure to join in as well. Once Lan Zhan had nodded back, Zulu stepped forward. The next meeting is in Yiling at noon, 10 days from now. Please make sure to be there if you wish, though Laozu will be very busy with sect matters at the time and will be unable to attend. This week's top Wuji point carriers, continued Nienie, are Nahai at the top with 196, Raymin at second with 182, and Jilao at third with 178. The point term is over today, and everyone is restarting at 0. Good luck earning points next term, everyone. Jilao, any questions, comments, or concerns for Laoshi? Like a real class meeting, thought Wei Wuxian, starry-eyed. A single hand rose from the crowd. Lan Zhan nodded towards it. Laoshi, a hesitant voice spoke up. There's a child here. A young! Wei Wuxian immediately sat bolt upright at the reminder of what he came here for in the first place, thankfully remembering he was hiding in time to stop himself. Peeking back through the bush, he met with an eyeful of A Young clinging happily to Lan Zhan's leg, beaming brightly up at him. Rich Gigi! Taking a look at Lan Zhan's face, Wei Wuxian almost laughed out loud at the panic expression it displayed. However, his amusement was quickly taken over by a weakness in his knees as he watched Lan Zhan kneel at the boy he considered his son and put a hand on his shoulder. Yan, he started, when the girls suddenly started to clamor at the mention of his name. He quickly silenced them with a look. Where is your Jean Gigi? Oh my God! Wei Wuxian heard one of the girls squeal slightly. He saw at least 10 other girls nod their head in agreement. Silly Rich Gigi, A Young smiled. He's been over there the whole time. As if in slow motion, his arm rose slowly higher, higher, and higher, until suddenly his tiny, cute little finger was pointed straight at Wei Wuxian. Wei Wuxian was quickly filled with panic as well, knowing that even the bush wouldn't cover him if he was actively being sought out. And yet, as one, the crowd slowly turned to look straight at him. A dead silence took over the clearing. Through his own haze of panic, Lan Wangxi wonders, why is there always a crowded place quieter than his Jingxi? Time was frozen, and the thousands of eyes feasting upon Wei Wuxian weighed heavily on him. So he did just what one should always do in such a situation. Hi, he said, and raised his hand in an awkward wave. The girls exploded. Screaming, shouting, squealing, even fainting, the clearing was thrown into absolute chaos. Chants of Yiling Laozu and Wei Wuxian and even Let's go Wuji, let's go featured prominently in the noise. Wei Wuxian had dragged to the middle of the group, and he was quickly surrounded by girls clamoring to shake his hand, touch his hair, feel his biceps, and the like. The arms pushing and pulling reminded Wei Wuxian of those ethereal 3 months back when, with only Ghost and the dead, and Lan Zhan, save me! Silence! A loud voice cut through the noise, and suddenly, with a, Yes, Laoshi, there was an order. Form a single line, Lan Zhan continued, and what? Did Lan Zhan just yell? Today was truly the weirdest day Wei Wuxian had ever had. Once the girls were in line, a dazed Wei Wuxian watched as Lan Zhan dismissed them quickly, and barely felt himself shaking hands with almost every single one of them. When they all had fully finished enthusiastically greeting him, they left the clearing, and before he knew it, Wei Wuxian was the only one left with Lan Zhan, his 3 helpers, and Ayan as company. Well, this is awkward. She may. Jiyan swatted her arm. Lan Zhan looked at them, and then piped down. Zhao Lu grabbed his sleeve again, and Wei Wuxian's jars of vinegar appeared tenfold, this time correctly attributed to jealousy of Zhu Lao. He glanced at her hand, and she took it away with a wiggle of her eyebrows. Wei Wuxian would have complained, but fair. Nienie, Jiwan, Zhaolu, said Lanjan with his deep, really good voice that Wei Wuxian could now fully appreciate. Please leave us to speak. Zhu Lao looked scandalized. But Lao Shi... Nienie gave her a strict look, and she finally complied after a few aborted attempts to stay. Finally, Wei Wuxian was left alone with his son and the newly discovered object of his affections. They stared at each other in silence. Wei Ying, Lanjan began. I'm sorry. Wei Wuxian stopped short, because... What? It must have been very uncomfortable for you to listen to me speak about you in such a way, and I apologize if my feelings make you feel disgusted or... Oh, okay, stop, said Wei Wuxian, who really couldn't listen to this anymore. Lanjan, I swear, it doesn't make me feel uncomfortable, like, at all. I'm actually really, really happy. Lanjan's nose scrunched up a little in a confused frown, which was ridiculously adorable, but also very unnecessary at the moment. Yeah, Wei Wuxian continued, I like you too, like fancy you, love you, I want to, I can't leave you, whatever, you, all that. Lanjan stared after a few moments of utter silence. Wei Wuxian grew worried that he had somehow misread the situation. Unless, you don't actually like me? In that case, No! Lanjan cut in, and Wei Wuxian was delighted to see a light dusting of pink stain his ears. When it became clear he wasn't going to continue, Wei Wuxian spoke again. No, Lanjan, so you do like me? At his companion's embarrassed nod, he laughed happily. Lanjan, I thought interrupting was forbidden. You're really good at going rogue, huh? Despite his teasing words, Wei Wuxian made it clear just how happy he was by lacing their fingers together and squeezing. At Lanjan's responsive squeeze and a small smile, he beamed even brighter and reached for A Young's hand. The little boy took it easily, smiling happily at his caretakers. And so, the three of them walked in the direction of the town, together. Coda. Nay, Gongji, you really don't need to pay us anymore, Ji-wan insisted. We're doing it for fun now. When Ni Hussein did not give up, pushing the coin purse back towards her, she finally relented and picked it up. You know this is all going to sect funding, right? I'm really happy to hear that, Ni Hussein said. It's so great that so many people are getting together and having fun, especially my two favorite actresses. Nienie looked at him skeptically. You know, why did you pay us to act out in that alley? Anyway, did you know that they'd already end up getting married because of it? Oh, don't worry about that. Nothing to concern yourself with. Ni Hussein snapped to open his fan. It was just for fun. A little hobby. I don't really know. Notes. Zhao Lu's real name is Ni Lu. Do with that what you will. Wow, that was so fucking amazing. Like, I'm so glad I did not read it before I started recording. Dude, that was so fucking funny. And like, the one girl that screamed "step on me," like, same, low-key. But yeah, I really hoped you enjoyed this fic. I 100% enjoyed reading it. Editing it is gonna be a bitch though, but I'll figure it out. Anyway, I did really quickly want to say that I was inspired to make these podfics by some of my favorite podfickers on YouTube. My Lost and Found, RatOverlord, Eleanor Elizabeth. I'm going to link all their channels in the description because I genuinely think that they are amazing at what they do, and you should really check them out if you like Boku no Hero podfics. And I believe My Lost and Found also does some Percy Jackson podfics. I haven't listened to them, but you know, do with that what you will. But yeah, just some really great people, and I absolutely love their work. And so I just wanted to kind of like credit them for giving me this idea, I guess. And of course, I am going to link the story down below. Like I said, there is another work, and after reading this one, I am definitely gonna read the next one. But yeah, thank you all for listening, and I hope you liked it. Just a side note, I ended up recording a lot of bloopers, so I'm going to be including those too, and hopefully it made you laugh. Thank you again. It wouldn't do to answer, he thought, because if they found out he was drooling over the Yiling Laozu, they might... Oh, that's Yiling Laozu, says Jiwan. Deathly quiet. Oh my god, I love this fic. I love this fic so much. I need to reread that part again. Okay. It wouldn't do to answer, he thought, because if they found out they were... Dude, I can't. It's so fucking funny. 5 hours later, Sorry. The fact that this man literally fucking described the love of his life for 5 hours and he still wasn't even done... I need love like this. Oh my god. Like, can somebody love me this much, please? Please? Anyway. The number of his students rose before his eyes from 6 to over 300. And that was just what Wanji had seen alone. Who knew what the other 40 were doing? Dude, can I be a part of this fan group, please? Because, like, I would sell my fucking soul. Anyway. Also, there were ranks within his sect that determined seniority, such as age, status, experience, and something called Wu-G points. Wu-G points. I fucking love that. Okay, sorry. I'm cackling.